All right, we want to welcome everybody to the Future of Payments Canada. This is a daVinci Payments webinar, and we're really excited to have you all here today and our guests. We want to welcome you and let you know that today we're going to share our insights from our Canadian study to identify how people are paying now under COVID shelter in place and how they anticipate spending during holiday 2020 shopping season and beyond. I'm Rodney Mason, daVinci CMO. I lead insights for daVinci Payments, and we'll be hosting the beginning and close of this presentation. Really quickly, daVinci Payments blends art, science, and a quarter century of experience to deliver greater value in payments for all stakeholders. Our payment solutions include virtual and physical prepaid, push pay, and other forms issued instantly and packed with choice, flexibility, and branding for companies to pay and engage their consumers, employees, contractors, channel partners, and businesses. For this study, we partnered with the Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization, also known as the CPPO, to bring in this important information. The CPPO is a not-for-profit organization and the collective voice of the prepaid payment industry in Canada. It is the only association solely focused on this growing industry, and is supported by major financial institutions, processors, fintechs, card networks, and other industry players. For further information, you can visit www.cppo.ca. Before we begin, a few house cleaning notes. In a few days after this webinar, we will be emailing you a YouTube link for the recording of this webinar, and we will send you a full copy of this study in its entirety. A study for the US and the UK were also conducted, and you can get copies of those and a link to watch those webinars from davincipayments.com. Just click on research studies. We will also email you a special invite to our next webinar, which takes place October 27th, where we will share our Future of Shopping US Women study. If you have questions at any time during this presentation, there is an orange menu button in the top right corner. You can open that and scale down to questions. Just type in your questions, and we have allocated time at the end of the presentation to, we'll ask those on your behalf, and then we'll have those answered. Also, during this presentation, we're going to run a one-question survey today to see how the audience responds to this study. That question is proprietary. It's also confidential, so we won't know who responded, but it's a really simple question related back to this study, and it makes the presentation more fun and engaging. So with that, we can go to the next slide, please. Our presentation is led today by CEO David Josephs. David has decades of experience in payments, including leading Visa's push payments business in Europe, heading debit and prepaid at Visa for North America, and leading prepaid business for JP Morgan Chase. He will be leading the presentation and sharing his insights. He will first take you through the study findings, and then he's going to lead a roundtable discussion. Joining David in our roundtable discussion following the study are Karen Budahazi. She's the chairman of the Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization and Vice President Digital Enablement and Issuing for People's Group, a leading issuer in Canada. Jason Atkins, the founder and CEO of 360 Insights, will also be joining. 360 Insights is the world's leading channel success platform that provides rebate management, sales channel incentives, promotions management, payroll cards, and prepaid card solutions to Fortune 100 companies. Skye DL, co-founder and co-CEO of Gusto, is also joining us. Gusto is a 5-star rated platform that helps companies build employee recognition and customer reward programs that make people feel appreciated. Also in our presentation, on the next slide, Tracy Monson. She's daVinci's Chief Product Officer, and she's going to share some exciting news about the launch of our PushPay product in Canada. And she'll do that today briefly and also share some other digital products that we have. As I mentioned, I'm Rodney Mason, CMO, and we will have time for your questions at the end of the presentation. Simply type those in. Before we begin, let's just look at our methodology for this study. We conducted a national study in Canada on August 7th, 2020. There were 502 participants that were reflective of the Canadian population with a 96% confidence. This was done via SurveyMonkey online panel. Now, David Josephs, our CEO, will take you through those findings. David?
Thank you so much, Rodney, and thanks everyone for joining today. We are excited to share our findings with you, which show some surprising shifts in how people pay and want to be paid going forward. So let's jump in. I do want to point out that the questions we asked in this study were focused on transactions and not necessarily on spend volume. We wanted to get a sense of how people are living their lives, so we focused on how often rather than how much. And with that focus, we found 5 key insights. Online shopping continues to grow. It is nearly half of all shopping and will increase for the 2020 holiday shopping season. Mobile payments are rising significantly as a portion of all remote payments. New payment technologies continue to be adopted across the board. And while card payments are as popular as ever, they are being used in new form factors. And the last key finding is that how people spend influences how they want to be paid. We'll save some time at the end for your questions, so be sure to submit them as we go. And now we'll jump into the findings of the survey in more detail. I mentioned online shopping has grown. The migration from brick and mortar spend to digital channels is not new. Payment players and merchants have been adapting for years, both to respond to and to drive online activity. However, more than half of our survey respondents are doing 50% plus of their shopping online, and this applies across all segments. 45% of all shopping is now done online, more than doubling since 2019. Now, this is not really a surprise given the pandemic restrictions. What is a bit more surprising is that trends toward remote commerce seem to be increasing as we look to the future. When we fielded this survey during the summer, we expected that people would signal more intention to shop in person as they look to the future. However, we found just the opposite. Online spending is anticipated to grow even more during the holiday season, up 4 percentage points from where it is now, with about half of total transactions expected to be online during the holiday shopping season. So if that much commerce is happening online, how are people doing their shopping? For that many folks to be shopping remotely, they must be able to access all of those merchants. And they can. 96% of those surveyed have at least one connected device, and this spans all income levels and ages. Mobile payments are nearing the majority of all online payments. Mobile is now an impressive 41% of all online transactions, and this is driven by 40% of our respondents using mobile devices for half or more of their online purchases. And that percentage goes to 61% for 26 to 38-year-olds. Even more surprisingly and even more significant, 10% of individuals use mobile for absolutely all of their online purchases, and that includes 16% of those 26 to 38-year-olds. 16% of 26 to 38-year-olds are doing all of their remote shopping through their phones. So why phones? Apps. Apps and tokenization of card credentials into those apps and into mobile wallets are the driving force behind the rise of mobile. 74% of all respondents are using payment apps. This is another area where assumptions about age probably should be discarded. Over half of people who are 56 and older have payment apps. My mother, and she's going to hate me for saying this, but my mother turned 80 a few months ago. She's not the most sophisticated and she's not the least sophisticated user of technology, but she engages with payment apps all the time. We've been talking about settings, where people shop, and we've been talking about devices, phones, and computers. I'd like to share some of the findings regarding payment preferences in more detail. And I'd like to make a distinction between the stores of value and spending form factors. Most people are using traditional credentials for their purchases. Debit cards linked to a checking account, prepaid card, credit cards accessing lines of credit. The form factors, though, are changing, as we expect they would. Physical cards are being supplemented by mobile wallets and a variety of payment apps. And this is another area where preferences are pretty consistent across all segments. Now, as Rodney mentioned, we're going to do a very, very quick survey to see how you, the participants in this webinar, are shopping. Please tell us what percentage of your shopping you are currently doing online. Your responses are confidential, and we'll share the results here in less than 1 minute. While you're answering the survey, a quick reminder, as Rodney said, we'll be emailing you a special invitation to our next webinar that will take place on Tuesday, October 27th. This is our Future of Shopping Women's study that dives into very specifically how women in the United States are shopping under COVID and the rewards and go-to-market methods that are most effective in helping them complete their shopping journey. Also, today we're reviewing the future of payments in Canada. We have previously had webinars focused on the United States and the United Kingdom, and you can find those on our website at davincipayments.com/research-studies to download your copy if you're interested. And now for the answers to the survey. Wow, it's about similar to what we've seen both in terms of the survey and elsewhere. Over half is sort of happening, online, which is not terribly different than what we've seen and what the survey respondents were. Now let's go back to our study and then move on to our roundtable discussion. We've talked about shopping online, we've talked about shopping in person. We're going to focus right now on those in-person transactions. And we have found that traditional methods of payment remain robust when people are shopping in person. Credit card is a store of value, debit card, cash, prepaid. However, the way people are accessing those stores of value is starting to change significantly. A few years ago, you might not have seen contactless apps and mobile wallets quite as prominent in how people pay. You might not have seen contactless payments quite as prominent as well in terms of how people are paying in person. Canada has been out front in contactless payments for some time, and we'll spend a little bit of time on the roundtable talking through that as well. It's not just how we shop, though, that's changing. Where we get our financial services is also expanding. Just over a third of our respondents said that they use non-traditional banking services. These could be neobanks, they could be prepaid cards, they could be other services that go beyond the traditional bank. An implication of this, supported by the rise of apps and the rise of mobile, is that people are branching out to new service providers as more form factors become more fluid and more easily accessed. Still, traditional banking is not going away. The data indicate that many of these non-traditional banking services are supplemental to existing banking relationships and not replacing them. So we talked about how people shop, how people pay. Now let's look at how and why people get paid. People tend to get paid a lot less frequently than they spend. On average, people get paid between 1 and 4 times a month. And the reasons people get paid are also not too surprising. Earned wages, government benefits, incentives and rewards. various types of reimbursement. However, similarly to how people are paying in person, some things caught my eye as well in terms of why people get paid. Gig and part-time work is becoming much more important in recent times, in recent years, in terms of why people are getting paid. Peer-to-peer payments, again, mostly using apps, are becoming increasingly prevalent, something you would not have seen 5 years ago. And cryptocurrencies, people cashing out cryptocurrencies as a way to get paid, that's not something that we would have seen not too long ago either. So again, a lot of the reasons people get paid, exactly what you would expect. Wages, benefits, those types of things. But we're starting to see just some of those new technologies really move into why people get paid as well. So that's why. Let's look at how. Similarly, the hows haven't changed too much either. You got direct deposit, you've got checks, cards, but just like the whys, the hows also have some new entrants. Email links, those mobile payment apps we've been talking about, peer-to-peer, even shopping apps are representing new ways that we are getting paid. And this is important. This is really important because how you pay drives how you want to be paid. How you want to be paid is influenced by how you intend to spend. Our prior discussion was focused on why people get paid and how they get paid. Wages, government benefits, all provided by direct deposit, prepaid cards, checks, etc. However, we then asked people, what is important to you when you are getting paid? And this is what they told us. When they think about how they're getting paid, they're thinking, can I use this to spend my money in many places? They are wanting their payments to be easy to spend as well as easy to receive. They want it fast and they want it to be secure. And they want it to be secure in transit, when they have it, and when it's being used. And please remember, these are not answers to how people want to spend. They are answers to what people think about when they're asking, how do I want to be paid? And this implies for payers out there, you should be thinking about the spend form factors and the stores of value as you think about how you're making a disbursement. It's not as simple as just saying, here's your money. You need to be thinking about how the person receiving that money is going to want to turn around and spend it. So, to summarize the key findings again, online shopping continues to grow. It's nearly half of all shopping and will increase for the 2020 holiday shopping season. Mobile payments are rising significantly as a portion of all remote payments. We saw that in the discussion of apps and tokenization. New payment technologies continue to be adopted across the board. Card payments are just as popular as ever, but they're being used in new form factors and driven by those apps and driven by those mobile wallets. And as we just discussed, how people spend influences how they want to be paid. Before we go into our roundtable discussion, Tracy Monson, who's our Chief Product Officer, is going to briefly share some information about our push to card product that we've just launched for Canada. Tracy?
Thank you, David. Yeah, I'm happy to share with you all a couple new products actually that we've launched in Canada to meet the evolving demands highlighted in this study. So daVinci is on a mission to deliver greater value in payments. Instant digital payment options have always been a big part of that story because while events of 2020 have accelerated demand for things like instant, mobile, and contactless payments, these certainly aren't new trends by any means. As part of our mission, we're delivering 2 new offerings to daVinci customers in Canada. First, earlier this year, we launched tokenization for our Canadian payees. This means that a virtual prepaid card can now be added to any of the popular mobile wallets, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, etc., and then used to transact wherever those wallets are accepted. As a result, virtual cards become that much more flexible. In addition to spending through e-commerce channels and shopping apps, a virtual card can enter the physical retail environment in the form of a completely contactless transaction through your phone. And as a bonus, the now more flexible virtual card reduces cost, waste, and the fulfillment time typically associated with physical form factors. So, driven by the trends we saw in this study, and combined with increased virtual card flexibility, we're seeing virtual card adoption rise across payment programs in all verticals, from incentives and rebates to appeasements to refunds to contractor payments. Second, we're announcing here for the first time the upcoming launch of our push pay offering in Canada. So as the study shows, instant access to funds is important to this market. A push payment is one of the quickest, most frictionless ways that a payer can get funds into a payee bank account. This functionality uses a payee's debit card and the Visa or MasterCard network rails to push money into the payee's bank via a debit card, typically in a few seconds or less. By comparison, batched EFT processes can take up to a couple days to settle, and they require payees to provide their full bank routing and account number, typically viewed as much more sensitive pieces of data than your debit card number. So, to echo David, when we ask the question, how do you want to be paid? And we see that that answer is really all about how people spend and transact every day, we get especially excited about the relevance of wallet capabilities and push payments. If you want to learn more about these or any of our other payment solutions, visit davincipayments.com and contact us there. With that, I will hand things back over to David for our roundtable discussion with our valued partners and experts in the market.
Thanks so much, Tracy. I want to welcome the members of the roundtable, reintroducing them. We have, to join the discussion, we have Karen Budahazi, who is the chair of the Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization and also vice president of digital enablement and issuing for the People's Group, which is a leading issuer in Canada. Jason Atkins, the founder and CEO of 360 Insights, which is the world's leading channel success platform, providing rebate management and sales channel incentives, promotions, payroll cards, and prepaid card solutions to Fortune 500 companies. And Skay DL, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of Gusto, a 5-star rated platform that helps companies build employee recognition and customer reward programs that make people feel appreciated. We're going to go around the virtual table, so to speak, to get insights from our guests, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience. So Karen, if we can start with you, what kind of growth have you seen in digital transaction volume since the COVID restrictions?
Thank you, David. You know, as the Future of Payment study suggests, digital transactions have been up significantly under COVID. And what's interesting is that COVID has accelerated an existing trend toward growth in digital payments while bridging the gap between generations, you know, as you alluded to earlier in your presentation. So 18 to 49-year-olds have led digital transactions for some time now. But under COVID, the largest growth, generationally speaking, has been the over 50 age group who are now playing some catch up. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how many will actually, who underwent this behavioral change will actually continue post-COVID.
If my mother is any indication, they will continue. But it is interesting on the catch-up that you've seen. Canada, when we compare what we saw in Canada, what we saw in the United States and the United Kingdom, there was a more significant difference in how different generations used virtual payments. And it seems that COVID, it may be driving a sort of rebalancing of that dynamic. It's interesting to just see how much the pandemic is changing behaviors, and to your point, Karen, sort of how long it will, whether those behaviors will stay. Jason, if I can sort of jump over to you, are you seeing a shift in preference for virtual products at 360?
Yeah, it's pretty astounding, David. I mean, if you think about our business, we offer the choice to the person receiving the payment. Do you want a physical payment or do you want a virtual payment? And for 2020, we've seen a 50% growth this year over last year of people selecting virtual. And it's a trend not only we see in Canada, but we see it around the world in the other countries we work in. And I think it's really about what you guys all spoke about in the presentation today. It's about speed, convenience, and safety. That's what people want, and that's what virtual offers.
That's great. Skye, sort of continuing down these lines, how is the shift to mobile shopping and payments and engagement overall impacting your business?
Thanks, David. Yeah, the shift to mobile payments has been great for our business, actually. We've, for a long time placed a lot of focus on the mobile experience. We were actually a mobile-first platform before we started building out web tools, as we saw it critical to provide rewards that people actually want and value. And so more and more companies are realizing this, and they're looking for recognition and reward programs that allow their employees and customers to both send and redeem rewards using mobile devices. So yeah, it's been great kind of being in the tech space as things are going more virtual with COVID.
Karen, Skye was talking about mobile devices. We saw a lot from the study that there's a lot happening in that space as well. What specifically have you seen in mobile payment growth sort of since COVID, or even just over the past several months or seasons?
Yeah, so we've definitely been seeing growth in the use of mobile payment apps, both for online and in-person contactless payments. So as the study noted, we're seeing credit, debit, and prepaid still, very widely used, but how they're being used now is more often through some of these newer apps or form factors. So, like whether it's, mobile, online ordering for restaurants, or the challenger banks, for example, these are all some of the uses that we're seeing from a mobile perspective.
So I'm actually going to follow up, if that's all right with you, Karen, because sort of, in the United States, contactless payments are sort of, I know that they're kind of lagging behind. You've mentioned growth in contactless payments, and it seems much more widely used in Canada. What's happened to contactless transactions since COVID?
So it's a good question. Yes, the overall volume for contactless has increased. And since the COVID restrictions, the networks actually raised the limit on the spend for contactless from $100 to $250 per transaction. So that change really enabled more more contactless transaction counts, and it actually also increased the average spend per transaction. So this all really helped to drive usage in the market.
Absolutely. Jason, shifting back to you, Tracy was talking about push payment and push to card. Do you see push pay replacing checks in the not too distant future?
I'm really excited about push pay. I mean, it really changes the way people look at payments, especially businesses, where cash flow is utmost importance to them. They want something that's fast and secure, and that's exactly what push pay is. I've always talked to my team about how do we get rid of checks, and we replace some checks with ACHs, but push pay changes that. It's a much better solution, quicker, simpler, faster than the archaic stuff like checks, like direct deposit, like wire. So I see a massive shift to push pay in the near future.
Fantastic. Skye, what changes do you see in open loop and closed loop gift cards coming over the next few years? I know that you sort of play in both spaces. What do you see happening over the next couple of years in open and closed loop?
Yeah, well, I think we'll continue to see growth in both categories. That said, I imagine we'll see more kind of hybrid programs like ours that use both closed loop and open loop, and so leveraging the brand power of closed loop products and the merchants behind those to draw attention, and then driving a lot of the participants in those programs and the volume to open loop cards once customers are kind of in the programs.
Terrific. Terrific. Rodney, I've been driving sort of the roundtable discussion, and thanks to you all, Karen and Jason Skay, for this. But Rodney, do we have any questions from the audience that we can ask? I want to make sure that we get those in as well.
Yeah, we do have some questions from the audience, and I'll kick those off. Thanks, David, for the great job, and thank you everybody on the panel. I've got questions for our panelists though. So Jason, first question here to you. How is the shift to mobile shopping, payments, and engagement overall changing how 360 will service your customers in the next few years?
Yeah, I think that Skay talked about earlier. The world really is mobile first. Everything we do and how we interact is mobile. With that, we need to focus energy on how we engage and grow our experience for our clients and their customers through mobile first. No one sits down at their PC at night to do things. Everybody does it on a mobile. Nobody wants emails anymore. They all want SMS. Nobody even wants to carry a wallet anymore. It's all on their phone. So what I say to our team all the time and how we look at it is it's mobile first, period.
Great to hear. Yeah, and I've experienced that myself. I always try to order. I used to order online, and now I just do it all on my phone. There's just no reason to open a computer, it seems like, anymore. Speaking of that, these changes that have come through, this is for Skay. The next question, it says, Skay, given COVID restrictions, how has employee recognition changed?
Well, there's been a massive shift towards digital programs now that many more teams are working remotely. So where managers in the past might have been able to take employees out for lunch or drop by somebody's desk with like a token gift or something, they're now looking for software solutions to recognize these people that are kind of working from home. So, I think one of the major benefits that a lot of companies we'll see, and it'll make it hard to kind of switch back to kind of ad hoc programs, once we do get back to the office, is that these online programs allow you to really kind of track and measure the effectiveness and kind of present an ROI to the executive teams on those recognition programs.
Great. Yeah, it's really interesting, having people work remotely, keeping them motivated. I'm certain that's going to be huge for you, but you definitely have to think about how you engage differently. A great question from the audience. Karen, a question for you, and this is always a hard one. We hear this one a lot, but it says, Karen, based on what you know today and the findings from the future payment study, what growth areas do you see for prepaid and push payments in the year ahead and over the next 5 years? And I think the next 5 years is always the hard one, given it's crazy to tell what the next month is like. But can you answer those two questions?
I'll do my best. So for the year ahead, I think it's a perfect storm for prepaid and for push pay. Given holiday will drive even more online and contactless transactions than last year, consumers, will have greater demand for card products that work easily in payment apps. So with the decrease in travel rewards and loyalty, promotions and incentives, will be replaced, in large part by prepaid. So we've got growth in gig economy and part-time, remote work will also further drive prepaid and push pay volumes up. 5 years from now, as you mentioned, is a little bit harder to see, but prepaid and push pay will play a significant role in replacing checks. I mean, we talked about it a bit earlier. Checks have been, decreasing still over the years. However, there's still a large number of checks out in the market. I think, there's a few numbers out there, but, well over 500 million checks in market today. So the speed, security, and more efficient cost versus checks will expand prepaid and push pay into new areas where they've only just scratched the surface. So areas like refunds, deposit returns, government and nonprofit assistance, insurance payouts, work pay, and more. So greater demand for fast, secure, and simplified ways to instantly fund will also create further demand for prepaid and push pay products.
All right, well, that's always a tough question, but that's an awesome answer. I want to thank you all, Karen, Jason, Skay, and David. Thank you all for sharing your excellent insights. And thank you to everyone for attending today. Very quickly, I want to remind you, we will be forwarding you the Future of Payments Canada research and a video of this presentation via email, so that'll come in just a few days. And we will send you an invite also to our Future of Shopping Women's study taking place October 27th. You can find our other studies on davincipay.com under Insights. We also encourage all attendees, if you're not a member of the Canadian Prepaid Providers Organization, please check it out. It's an outstanding organization at www.cppo.ca. It is the leading organization and voice for all things prepaid in Canada. Check out 360insights.com, Jason's company. They are the leader in sales channel success, rebate management, promotions management, payroll, and prepaid card solutions for Fortune 100 companies. And don't forget Gusto, that's GUUSTO.com, to learn more about their 5-star rated platform that helps companies build employee recognition and customer reward programs that make people feel appreciated. If you need push pay, prepaid, or other kinds of payments in Canada and around the world, please visit us at davincipayments.com. Our site is a good resource for you. We've got a lot of studies on there, and you can always on any page hit contact and get in touch with us instantly. This concludes today's Future of Payments Canada event. We look forward to seeing you all in the future and want to thank you again for your attendance. Have a great day.